Welcome back to People Being Real. I'm sitting here with the one and only Brooklyn Sherman. Brooklyn.
Hello.
Welcome to my home. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for everyone tuning in, Brooklyn has this absolutely amazing blog and Instagram page. It's called The Way We Met. It is the best love stories on the internet. You've taken the internet and Love by Storm have grown so fast to nearly 400,000 followers. And the reason being you tell real, honest love stories.
Yep.
Not just the Disney
no fairy
ones,
tales, no
but
fluff.
you get into the real juice that, makes us human and
Yep.
brings us together, pushes us apart. And I'm stoked to have you on the show.
I couldn't have said it better.
Thank you. Now, I could probably go on and on and on. That's what I do. But you have so many good stories. And just off air, we've just had a beautiful conversation. So without further ado, I just want to pass the baton over to you to share an open, honest story, something you've experienced in your life, as well as a lesson that you've learned as a result. So
So it's crazy because I was the girl that ran this super successful love blog. And I wasn't even loving myself. And, when I started The Way We Met, it was in June of 2015. And I moved to LA. I worked at a talent agency. And I had kind of started it on the side as like a side project. And then it was kind of like this overnight success. I'll never forget, I had done an interview shortly after I started it. I did an interview with Cosmopolitan online. And they posted the interview. And then the next morning, I woke up to like 10 missed calls from my brother who lives in New York. So it was 3 hours later there. And it was like 6 a.m. my time in LA. And he was trying to wake me up. And so finally I call him back and I'm like, what? Like, what's wrong? And he's like, you need to wake up. The Way We Met is literally in every publication on the internet. Like it was everywhere. Huffington Post, Glamour, People.com. And then 2 weeks later, I was on Good Morning America talking about it. And it was just it went completely viral. But I remember the moment that I had that conversation with my brother. And I remember logging onto my computer and seeing that it was everywhere. And my heart just sunk into my stomach. Like it was exciting, but I was absolutely terrified. Like all of a sudden, I had this huge responsibility. Like it wasn't just this fun blog about love that I started on the side. It was now so many eyeballs on this platform and there were so many things that I could do with it, but I kind of felt, I think my immediate reaction to go back to not loving myself was, I'm going to fuck this up. I think that had a lot to do with just how I struggled at the time with my own self-worth and feeling like, just feeling good and whole and just confident, and I think I really lacked that at the time. And I think it was also hard for me that I wasn't in a relationship and I was sharing all these love stories about people that were, and so many people were curious as to like what my story was or what my romantic situation was. But at the time I was just like figuring that all out. I was really in a place where I wasn't even like giving myself any love. So it was really hard to like be in a romantic relationship or feel, or like, even think about that. But so I think like really what I want my message to be to people, because, I do share all of these love stories, but they're, like you said earlier, they're real and they're people that have overcome so much to be together, whether it's, their parents being dead against them being married, or being from small towns where their communities were super homophobic, or, cultural boundaries, social prejudices, whatever it is, people have just overcome so much to fight for their love. And I think for me, it's been kind of this permission to like fight for my own love story, which right now is just loving myself and like stepping into my worth and feeling good enough to run this platform and to, kind of let myself be seen and heard and share my story versus just always sharing everyone else's stories.
Thank you so much, Brooklyn, for opening up and sharing with us. There's so much gold and it was so beautiful.
Thank you.
I really appreciated that because it's so real. One of the things that I love to do with my guests is just to kind of let them go, because oftentimes with storytelling, they're edited and fine tuned. And this was just so deeply relatable. You just opening up, flowing, and speaking your truth. And there's so many things that I personally connected with your story in terms of, here I am with this show, putting myself out there, and I find my own fear and insecurity gets in the way of me allowing the show to be what it can be and to have the impact that it can have. But at the same time, I see the opportunity for me to step into my light and to step into my vulnerability and my openness to allow myself to shine as well. So I find it's like that yin and the yang, that it's both the overall vision and staying true to the impact that the work can have and does have on other people, as well as being and stepping into my light.
Well, if you want to be really real, like, because I'm doing the work right now, like I'm in very intensive, like self-work. I'm actually like sitting here right now and internally, I'm just thinking about my whole story just now. And I'm thinking like where I fucked it up and like that it wasn't good. And like just in my total perfectionist mind of like, or like I'm sitting in that shame of like, I don't feel like that was good. I want to do it again. I want another take. Like that's the kind of stuff I have to work through.
Right.
Like being like, it's okay to show up and it not be perfect. It not be like it go exactly as you had planned. And I think that's where like I'm really doing the work, because just the fact that I even caught that just now, and I'm like paying attention to that internal dialogue of like, relax, it's fine. Like it's okay if you misspoke. It's okay if you didn't say everything perfectly, or you rambled or whatever. Cause my mind moves so fast. Sometimes I can't talk as fast as my mind moves, but it's like, that's okay. That's uniquely me. Like that stuff is me, So I think just like being able to be okay with that is like a big step. And I think that's also why like I wanted to come on now, which we spoke about before I actually came on your show, which was I'm in this place right now of figuring out my next step, and I do not have it all figured out. And when you actually first reached out to me to be on your podcast,
it's probably like close to a year ago.
It was like a year ago when I totally was like crushing it.
Yeah.
And like I didn't want any part of this. But that's probably because I actually was less real, less authentic, less in my power, even though I was performing way better. But now that I'm kind of at this weird in-between moment, but I actually feel, isn't it crazy that I actually feel more in my power in this in-between moment of like trying to figure it out, because I'm just letting things be. Like I'm just surrendering,
Sure. Sure. In that moment, you had a groove. You didn't feel like you needed to share things because you already had the momentum. But I'm curious, was there something that you didn't want to share at that point, or were scared of sharing? And by the way, thank you so much for being so real. Before you answer this, I just want to like allude to this, that I've done 230 something episodes of the show, and I don't know if anyone has shared their story or shared a story and then really gone back and been like, oh crap, like I don't know if I got that as perfect as I wanted to. And just the way that you had the awareness that you owned up to it, so like you're not going to carry it with you. And then lastly, it's so freaking relatable. We've all been in that situation.
Yeah, I was literally sitting here just like, I want another chance. I want to redo the whole thing, start it from, and then I'm like, no, Brooklyn, stop. It was fine. It was good enough. Like, it doesn't always have to be perfect. Sometimes good enough is just, it's fine.
Totally.
And I thought that would be relatable for people to like hear that, because sometimes sharing those internal thoughts, like that's what people can relate to, is like, oh, I have so many moments of like thinking that wasn't good enough, or that like, wanting a redo.
For sure. So I want to get back to the question that I asked you. Okay. And that is, a year ago you were grooving, but at the same time, like didn't want to let yourself be in the spotlight, or there was something you didn't want to share vulnerably. So I'm curious to know what that might have been that you were trying to hide.
It's actually interesting because I moved out to LA like thinking that I would be in front of the camera, thinking that I would be like an actress or a singer or something. I always was like performing and entertaining from a young age. And so like a lot of people that moved to LA, like that's what I thought I would do. But I think after I started The Way We Met and it went so viral and became so public, I really like had a moment where I realized that I was hiding behind this platform, like sharing everybody else's stories and not my own. And so I think that I built a brand off of like not myself at all. And so I think like when you reached out, I was just in this period of like, I don't even know what I would say, or maybe that like, I don't think I could have been real at that time. You know, maybe I just wasn't ready for that like authenticity or vulnerability, you know, and it's kind of nice when everyone just thinks that you're doing amazing and you're killing it, you know, that's like a fun perception. But I think it's really important to share the times when we don't have total control, you know? And I think that like the reason that like I thought to reach back out to you is because I am so like intensively in this work right now of like working on myself and leaning into vulnerability and just like kind of just some of these deep wounds that I have. And so I think that was when I was like, you know what, a really great step into my vulnerability and into this would be coming on something like this and just speaking my truth, because that's almost like my first step of freedom. Like that's almost like me taking this step is like allowing me to be seen. It's like that first step into a more authentic life, and hopefully the universe will reward me for that, you know?
I guarantee it will. I guarantee it will. I think that's awesome. And one of the things that I heard you say is you didn't feel like you were ready to be real at that point. And what I say for that is awesome. Great. Like there's a time and place, I think, for openness and vulnerability, and like you want to feel comfortable. And there's the Buddhist saying that you can open up and share anything with anyone as long as it is true, it's important, it's timely, and said with loving kindness. So I kind of think it's that same type of concept, although a little different in that you got to be ready. You got to feel like you have the right audience that you're going to feel safe with and ready to go. I think what I love about your story is like you got to the other side and you're now here and being so open and so vulnerable and standing for what you believe in, speaking your truth, which not only serves others, but from my own personal experience, whenever I have the courage to open up and stand for what I believe in, it only reminds me who I am, reinforces who I am, and builds momentum to where I ultimately want to go.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And like vulnerability and openness, that's when you connect with people. Like, and I used to always think it was so opposite. Like if you have like a perfect, like if everything appears perfect and you know, we live in this world of social media where we're all perfectly curated and photoshopped and all these things. And like, it's actually so opposite. When you start to be vulnerable, that's when the magic happens. That's when people can like relate and form bonds that are real. And I'm seeing that so much in my life, especially recently, just that the more vulnerable I am, the more connections I'm making and the deeper, more meaningful connections I'm making. I think that modern dating has changed so drastically. I think, you know, stats say that a third of people meet online now. Our dating world and how people are finding love is so different. But I think the one theme that has not changed is that, you know, people are really finding love in moments of vulnerability, like we were just talking about. But I think the couples stories that I share, you know, they resonate with other people so much because each one of them has like a lesson, whether it's, and that's something I've kind of really worked hard on making sure that I do, is I wanted the way we met to expand people's minds. Like I wanted to broaden people's horizons and make them think about relationships and love in a different way. And so that's like something that I'm really proud of, you know? It's interesting, like I actually had somebody, I was telling you about this earlier, but I had someone that recently reached out to me, and you know, I've been running The Way We Met for 5 years now. And she said, you know, I've been following your blog for years, and I don't know if I would have ever had the courage to go up to my now husband and say hi to him at a bar had I not been following The Way We Met. Like The Way We Met, the stories that I read gave me like the permission / made me want to be like more assertive, more confident. And had I not read these stories and been inspired by them, I don't know that I would have ever gone up to my husband and said hi to him at a bar. And so to me, that moment was like this is so much bigger than me. Like this is really changing people's lives. Like it matters. And if I can do that, like if I can, even just for one person, then that's incredible, you know? So, yeah, I think although some of the stories get really deep, and I have couples that have, you know, survived cancer together and just really crazy, tough stuff, you know, and they've come through on the other end just through their love, which I think is so amazing. I think it's also about people who are single following along too and realizing that it still exists. And I think people really need to know that, especially in our world where it's just craziness and it's very, I think people are scared that they're not good enough. Like our social media world has bred so much insecurity and doubt. And I think there's a lot of people that don't think they're deserving of love. And so if my platform can change that, and I get a lot of comments of people being like, this gives me hope, then that's really cool because, I've inspired somebody to put themselves out there. And I think that's what it's really about.
Love that element of it where it's almost interactive. It's inspiring, someone who maybe never thought of finding love at a bar. Maybe they never saw that for themselves. When they read somebody else's story, all of a sudden it entered into their awareness. And then there she is tapping her future husband on the shoulder, something she would never do. So
or saying hi to someone on a subway or just all of those moments where we would normally shut down and be glued to our cell phones or on social media or whatever, if you just look up and say hi to a stranger or you just never know, it can change your life. And it might not even be that stranger is your future person, but maybe their friend is, or, maybe they introduce you to a really cool workshop or hobby or something. And then you meet your person that way. It's just, if we need so much more community and we need so much more just connecting. And so even though I'm a social media platform, I think that it's beautiful that I've been able to get people to connect offline. And so, I love that part of it.
What stories have gotten the most likes or engagement? Is there a certain type of story?
There's one story that I always think of. I think I just love this story, but there's a couple that, this girl went grocery shopping, and on her way out of the grocery store one day, she saw a guy unloading his groceries into her back seat. And she's pressing her lock button and it's going off. So she knows it's her car and she's what is going, she thought she was getting robbed. She had no idea what was going on. And, so she goes up to him and she's this is my car. And he's no, it's not. It's my car. What are you talking about? And she presses the button and he's his face just turns white. And he's and he notices that his car is right next. They have the exact same car, the same white Jeep right next to each other. And so he's I'll make you a deal. You can keep the groceries if you make me dinner, but you have to make me dinner later this week. And so she's okay. And she did. And now they're married.
So good. So it's really a juicy, unexpected type of story.
Twisted. Twisted, not twisted that way, but a twist of fate. Just it's just somebody went to the grocery store one day and met their husband. That's how simple it is. If you can meet your person at any moment of any day, maybe you shouldn't use Instacart or Postmates. Go to the grocery store, just get up and put yourself out into the world. Cause that's when you're going to have the chance to meet people.
I'm curious to know, cause love stories, in addition to being beautiful and, being the theme of pretty much every movie that's ever existed. But at the same time, I feel we have attachments to love stories or the way that we feel our love story should go. And the reason why I bring this up is I can only think of my own situations with love. But when I first got married and we were together for 11 years before we got divorced, but that was my love. That was, going to be my love of my life forever. And even when there was trouble in paradise, I'd go back to this story that I was telling myself about our journey together and how we were best friends and we were everyone's favorite couple and we were in the same a cappella group, yada, 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 that I was so attached to the way we met and to that love story.
For sure.
And then I've also found that people I've been dating, over the course of this last 7 years since I got divorced, that I'll still be attached to the story. We met during a self-development workshop, and because I signed somebody else up to the self-development workshop who then signed up this girl who I ended up started dating, that's fate, right?
Yeah.
I'm connecting the dots. I'm I want that to be my story because it's a good story.
Right.
Or we met on the gratitude bus. So I'm really, go ahead.
I have so much to say about this. Yeah. So I'm so guilty of that. I've been there. I've done that. I was in a relationship for 6 years, another one for 4 years. I've been in very long-term relationships where I was very attached to the story. But the reality is that you have the ability to change the story and change the narrative and shift that. And I think it can be that all of the ways that you met this person were serendipitous and beautiful and whatever, and you can still have that story, but it was just meant for that time of your life or to lead you to the next chapter. Like sometimes you were meant to meet a certain person, you know? And like, it's like that quote, and I know it's so cliche, but it's like some people are meant to be in your life for a reason and some people are meant to be in your life for a season. And like, I really believe that. Like, and I think that even some of the people that I was so attached to my love story with them, it ended up leading me somewhere on a different journey in life that put me exactly where I know I'm meant to be. So like, I think that it's just about being able to kind of unattach yourself to that story being like, oh, this is what it was supposed to be. And just realizing that maybe it was just to put you on a different path or to wake you up to something bigger or to like, there's like a crazy study about CEOs and how a lot of CEOs actually built their businesses when they were going through heartbreak. So there's something about heartbreak, and it's the same thing with like some of the most iconic art, songs and art and just everything have been built when somebody has been deeply heartbroken. And so I think there's beauty in that. Like there's beauty in that darkness when you're like, when you hit rock bottom and you're hurting so much and you kind of just pour yourself into, you know, in artistic expression or whatever it is, you pour yourself into your work and it becomes your best work. And so how can you go back and say like that this story was meant to be if out of it you've created something so much more beautiful or something that led you down like a path of your destiny, right? Like maybe it ends up becoming something that you do career-wise for the rest of your life. And it's like, yes, those wounds will always hurt. Like I still have them too. Like I still feel, you know, attachment to past relationships in certain ways. But it's just knowing that there's just a purpose for all of it, or at least maybe telling myself that story because it makes me feel better. But I do believe that like life it's interesting in that way where it like even the hardest times connect us to a better place.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like being real with what is, accepting what is, and then learning from the things in the past, the things that have worked, the things that haven't worked, and then connecting to your vision and continuing to live your life. I know for me personally that when my marriage did end, it ended up being the greatest opportunity of my life. It was the most pain I've ever experienced. It was the most tough time. I had to build myself up from like rock bottom. I had no confidence. My self-worth was totally in the shitter. But that's what led me to find self-development. Exactly. It's what led me to having this interview here right now. What do you feel like, what do you feel like your greatest opportunity for growth is?
I just think the work that I'm doing now, like I have to just really stick with it. And we talked about this a bit earlier, but I think that, you know, I have a friend who is in AA and I actually go to the meetings with her sometime. You know, in AA, they say that once you're an alcoholic, you're always an alcoholic. You can be sober for 20 years, you're still an alcoholic because you have to work the program daily. So for me, I think what I'm realizing is with self-worth and confidence, it's the same thing. People think like you have confidence or you don't. And that is so not the case. It's like any other muscle that you can learn to strengthen. And so for me, that is what I'm really committed to right now is like being able to step into my worth and feel good about it and like continuously do it because I know the more that I practice it and the more that I show up, even just like today doing something like this, I know I'm stepping into my worth and it's just continuing to strengthen that muscle. And, you know, eventually I will get to the point where being seen doesn't scare me at all. And I feel totally comfortable in it and totally good in it. And yeah, so I'm just committed to that, just like really doing the work that I'm able to like love myself. And of course, it's not going to be every day. Like there's going to be times where it's way harder than others. And I'm probably going to beat myself up like I did in the beginning of this interview being like, I need a retake. That wasn't good. But it's life. Like we don't always get do-overs and we have to just be comfortable with what we've already done and just move past it and create, you know, do our best to create what we want in the future. So
that was so good. I feel like you embodied everything that you stand for and like I love seeing it on full display here right now. Like, this is part of the risk that you're taking to put yourself out there.
Totally.
And you're killing it.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah. So I wanted to get your take on influence. I know it's something that I love ranting about, and I know you're opinionated on as well. So
yeah, no, I think that, it's just 2019 is an interesting place to be. Our world is run by social media and we can't escape it. It's our reality. But I think as I'm getting older and I'm seeing like the younger generation start to have like Instagram accounts, like just people I know, their kids, that like people's little cousins, just like we, I think, have a responsibility what we're putting on social media. And everyone is an influencer. Like, it doesn't matter if you have 1,000 followers, like you're still influencing those 1,000 people. And, I'm someone that's really big on like manifestation and visualization. And so like, to me, it's so important, like what you're listening to every day, what you're watching every day, what you're tuning into, because that becomes your reality in your life. And so I think that we all have a responsibility to each other. We are feeding each other content all day long. And so I think we have a responsibility to put things out there that are positive and that like lift people up. And, like the work you do, or just like a lot of people that I follow now that I'm just so inspired by. And I've gone through my feed and I've just like unfollowed people, that don't make me feel good about myself, or lift me up. And so like, unsubscribe, like that's literally what you're doing, like unsubscribing from having these people in your life, from having them influence you in any way. So I think that we all need to pay more attention to not only what we're putting out there, but who we're paying attention to. Because if you become who you surround yourself with, and social media has really like become our current world right now, then you have to pay attention to who you surround yourself on that platform too, especially with how much time that we're all spending on social media. So I think, we just have to really be more cognizant of that, and all really take a responsibility as influencers, regardless of what that number is, regardless if it's 1 million people or 1,000 people. Like, I just think we need a break from all the vacation photos and the Gucci clothes and just all that bullshit all the time. It's just so surface level. And also it's like, at the end of the day, like, what do you want to be remembered for? Like, like your life is your message to the world. So like, at the end of the day, like, do you want people to remember that you wore Gucci? Like, what do you want people to remember? Like, for me, like, if it can be that I shared love and inspired people, then that's awesome,
For sure. I think a lot of social media today, I think everything you said, like, I completely agree with it. I love, is very me-centric. What's in it for me? Mm-hmm. What's going to keep my attention? Is it going to make me look good?
Right.
Versus, how can I give? How can I be of service? How can I share things that are meaningful to me that might be meaningful to other people as well? And, not to say that it's black and white. I think there's a time and place for each, but I think that if we could only focus on the latter just a little bit more, that there's so much juice that comes from from those grapes. And
totally.
Talking about everyone being an influencer, it's something that I believe as well. There's consequences to everything we say. We're sensitive beings, so I'm a believer, instead of just looking at the influence we have on others, but what's our kindfluence? And the word kind means to be generous, helpful, and what's the third one? Caring. And I think if we have that approach of kindness, then we're going to have the influence that we want to have on other people and create the relationships that are rewarding. But as we wrap this up, Brooklyn, what can we do to support you?
Support each other. We don't shine unless we all shine, and I really do believe that. And I think just like, take the time, like if you're at the grocery store or you're in an Uber, like take 2 minutes to ask your Uber driver how their day is. Like, people really need human interaction. Like on the like list of, on the hierarchy of needs, like, yes, it's food, shelter, whatever, but there's also human interaction. Like, that's an actual need. Like, we are so deprived of that in our current world, and we all need it so much. We all just need to like feel seen by people, and so like, to support me, I just think support each other. And obviously I would love for people to follow me also, but that's because I want everyone to be inspired by these great stories. The platform isn't about me, although I am going to make more of an effort to allow myself to be seen. But no, I think that our world needs more like unconditional, real, authentic love, because that's the shit you live for, you know? I mean, at the end of the day, you want to create memories with people that you love and, you know, be able to sit on a rocking chair with somebody and look back at your life and tell funny stories and have great things to, you know, remember. And so I think that's the beauty of life. And I think all the other stuff, it just doesn't matter. It's just not important.
So true. I want to close it out with one final question.
Okay.
And actually, it's not a question. It's just to complete the end of the phrase. So whatever you are going through, ... What would be your advice?
Don't give up. I know that's really cliche, but also like, it's okay if you're not currently loving yourself. Like I said earlier, you can grow that skill. You can strengthen that muscle. If you don't like who you are today, when you look in the mirror, I've been there. Every single person you know has been there. We all have insecurities. Every single person in the world has insecurities. So just take small, little actionable steps every single day to improve your self-worth. Whether that's just something as little as going for a run. For me today, it was being on this podcast, just showing up. And I really think if we can just do these little things to feed our confidence or do things that make us feel uniquely ourselves, then that will help. You know, we really have to just get off social media, stop letting people influence us that we don't care about, and just step into our own worth, our own power, and do that work every day. Because if you do it, it's going to pay off and you're going to just be able to create a life that is so much more authentically you. So
the one and only Brooklyn Sherman. Brooklyn, this has been such a joy. I know this is the first time that we've connected in person, and I know it's going to be the first of many collaborations and conversations. I'll give you an Are You Being Real mug. I got to order the new ones for People Being Real. But thanks for being awesome. Thanks for being so open. Thanks for being you.
Thanks for giving me the space to be me.
This has been fantastic.
Yeah, it's been awesome.